Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is McKay Allen. I'm the Director of Content and Communications at Log My Calls, and we're excited that you're here today and that you've joined us for this webinar. We're really excited to have David Rodnitsky on the webinar with us today to give us some tips to prepare our SEM campaigns for the holidays, which is important this time of year, obviously. So thanks to David, first of all. We appreciate it. We'll introduce him more fully in a moment. First, a couple of quick house cleaning items and then some announcements. The first question people often ask with these webinars is, who the heck is Log My Calls and why do you do these webinars? So I want to address both of those really quick before we introduce David. First, who is Log My Calls? We're a call analytics provider. So essentially we do four different things. The first thing we do is we tell marketers of all sizes, small businesses, enterprises, as well as agencies, which ads, campaigns, and keywords generate phone calls for them. We also record calls. And then we provide a tool called Conversation Analytics that actually analyzes the phone call using speech recognition technology and then pulls out data like lead score, whether or not the call resulted in a conversion, whether or not it resulted in an appointment or a sale or a reservation or whatever your conversion action is. And then we even go to the other side of the call and analyze the employee who answered the phone and determine if they sold the product effectively, if they were polite, if they engaged the caller in an effective way. So we really provide in-depth data about phone calls, both basic call tracking, which sources generated the call, but then also what happened on the phone call. We try to mine as much data out of phone calls as we can. And then the fourth thing we do is with that information, we can automate actions within other systems. So really marketing automation for the phone is what we are trying to build and trying to provide for our customers. And then the second question people ask is, why do you do these webinars? So you'll notice on your screen there, you see our webinar library, logmycalls.com/webinar. We host 1 to 2 webinars every single week with marketing experts from around the world. So today we have David. Tomorrow we have a great webinar with Jake Jordan about rebooting your blog. Last week we did a webinar with Fred Valles, who is an insider at Google and then now runs a couple of different companies. So long story short, you can see here we do a lot of webinars. We do them for a few reasons. First, we do them because they're really good content, and it provides really great information to you. If you can come in and register for these webinars or listen to them after the fact, watch them, it's really good information. And then second is we naturally want to get in front of marketers. That's our audience. And so what better way to get in front of marketers as a company than to provide advice for marketers? So that's what we try to do. And then the third reason is we've made some really, really great friends and connections with our webinar presenters over the years. We've done this for about 2 years now and have done probably 200 webinars. So it's been a great tool for us and a great tool for our partners and really useful for people who attend. So thank you for being a part of it. We really appreciate it. So as I said today, we have David Rodnitsky. He is the CEO of 3Q Digital. I was just a second ago reading the founding story, how he founded the company. Really, really interesting. They do a fantastic job. They've got a lot of employees now, and they've worked with a lot of great companies at his agency. As for David, he has a BA with honors from the University of Chicago, which is a great school, and a JD from University of Iowa. He has spoken at, and we were just talking, David and I believe I met him at a conference of some sort where he was probably speaking. He's spoken all over the place, including CNN Radio. He's appeared in Newsweek, Advertising Age, Search Engine Land, and a lot of others. So we're excited that he's agreed to join us today. David's going to have a short presentation, about 30, 35 minutes, and then we get the opportunity to ask him questions. So I encourage you to do that. Type the questions into the little question bar, and we'll address those questions as we get to the end of the presentation. So first, so you know how to use that question area, here's what I want you to do as I toss it over to David. Type in where you're calling in from today. I'll start it off. I am calling in from St. George, Utah. Our offices are in Salt Lake City, and then we have a satellite office in St. George, Utah, which is about 120 miles north of Las Vegas. And I can see your screen, David, so that's great. So 120 miles north of Las Vegas, that's where I'm in. So type everybody in where you're calling in from in the question area, just the city and state or province or whatever. David, thanks for joining us while people are doing that. We appreciate it. And tell everybody where you're calling in from today.
Hey, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. And I'm calling from San Mateo, California, the heart of Silicon Valley.
the heart of Silicon Valley. And we've got people from all over the place as well. We've got people from Michigan, New York City, Connecticut, San Francisco, Charleston, South Carolina. So we've got a group from all over the place today. So, David, we're excited to have you, sir. We really appreciate it. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, thank you, McKay, for the introduction and for having me. I'm excited to present this. Like you, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping and just give you a slide or two about 3Q Digital, and then we'll get into the meat of the presentation. So first off, just to give you a sense of who we are, we like to call ourselves Silicon Valley's agency of record. And this is a little bit of a joke, like these are the guys from the show Silicon Valley. But our agency, we predominantly we work with very fast-growing companies.
Hey, David, real quick.
Silicon.
Sorry, just so you know, your slides aren't full screen. Not necessarily a big deal. Just wanted to make sure you knew. So that's all.
Okay. 1 second. See if this works.
Again, not a big deal for me. I just wanted to make sure you were aware.
Yeah, well, it was full screen for me, but I don't know. Is it still looking?
I can see your. Maybe it's different. I mean, I can see your next slide in your notes, but maybe that's how it's supposed to look.
Well, let's just go with it because I'll.
Yeah, no, it looks fine. You're good. I just wanted to make sure
everyone will have everyone will have a preview of what's coming next.
That's right, and that is a great show, by the way. I agree.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, so I'll just kind of move on to the next slide then. So a little bit about us. We focus on SEM, SEO, paid social display. We have offices across the U.S. We have about 125 people now. We are the largest agency spending money on Google, independent agency, over $200 million a year spent for our clients. We're honored to have been winning awards for growing fast and doing great things. So let's get into the meat of the presentation, which is the actual tips. I've done holiday SEM campaigns now for probably 10 years, and these tips, they're actually 8 tips instead of 10. I just consolidated some of them, but these tips come from my experience in the space working with some pretty big spenders. The first thing I would say is that the best way to prepare for this year's holiday is to look at what happened last year if you have that experience. The things that are most important to understand, first of all, is when is the peak shopping time for your particular product. So I'll talk about this a little bit later. People think, oh, I just have to prepare for Cyber Monday. That's definitely not the case. There are a lot of variances by product as to when something is at its peak point. The same thing applies to competitive behavior. Knowing when bids are going to increase is going to help you have the right budget and have the right controls in place for when bids change. What messages worked, what promotions worked, what products sold the most. Do you have the right staffing in place? Looking at last year and looking at what you did right and what you did wrong is going to be really valuable. And there are always changes from year to year, but as a good rule of thumb, whatever happened last year is very, very likely to happen this year. So don't reinvent the wheel. Figure out your own personal rhythm for your company to prepare for this year's holidays. Tip number 2 is to start planning now, and I would actually say this tip is almost too late to start planning now, but it's better now than never. My honest recommendation is that you should start planning for holiday campaigns probably in August, because there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. Probably the biggest factor that will impact people is whether you actually have the inventory in stock and ready to ship. So this goes back to just understanding what happened in the prior years as well. But we have definitely seen situations where people have run out of inventory by December 10th, and they could ship till December 20th. Don't be that company. Similarly, if you have to coordinate with your legal team or your merchandising team around certain pricing or certain promotions, when those promotions are going to run, you need to have that ready now, and you need to have a calendar, if you will, of what's going to run and when it's going to run, what it's going to say, ready to go, before Thanksgiving hits. Again, same concept I just talked about before. Do you have the right people on staff to be able to handle the extra work? We'll talk about this on the next slide, but if you really want to do the holidays right, you may need to have someone, maybe yourself, maybe someone else, working the weekends to be able to manage your campaigns. And then budget is hugely important. Most retailers know that 40% of revenue for a retailer comes during the holiday season, comes from Black Friday on, and hence the term Black Friday. That's when most retailers go from the red to the black. So talking to your finance team and having that budget ready to go, and letting them know what you think you're going to spend is really important. You do not want to run out of budget before the season's over, or run out of inventory. And we'll talk about how that actually could turn out to be an advantage if you are planning in advance, if your competitors have made this mistake and run out of budget. So number 3, bad news for search engine marketers, but not necessarily news that you're unaccustomed to. Expect to work odd hours. So as search engine marketers, you know that you can never really just shut off completely. I remember 10 years ago I was working with a technology company to do campaign management, and the guy who was managing our account on a Friday night made a bid change, but he meant to make the change from 30 cents to 37 cents, and instead he made it to $3.70. And we showed up Monday morning, and we had spent $70,000 that we didn't mean to spend, and he hadn't bothered to check on the weekend. So there's a couple lessons there. One is don't make bid changes on Friday night, right before you leave for home, because you could end up in that sort of situation. And then the second lesson there is, in general, we have to, when you're running a campaign that's running 24/7, you have to sort of pay attention all the time. And in the holiday season, this is even more important. So, while it is true that during the holiday season, weekends typically see a dip in spend, and not unlike the rest of the year, you're still talking about very large numbers that could be occurring on the weekends, or could be occurring well past the typical sort of 9 to 5 business hours. So my recommendations here are, first of all, to have a plan in place, to have someone not only checking the accounts on the weekends, but probably managing the accounts on the weekends, literally looking at every hour and saying, are we in the right position? Are we getting the right CPA? Is the messaging working? The other thing that you should strongly consider is to literally look at your campaigns on an hourly basis, or even more frequently than that. Google's UI delays reporting by up to 2 hours. So it is kind of hard to look at your account and see what exactly is happening in terms of whether you're being outbid, whether you're getting the right conversions. One thing that I've done in the past is to hire temps or people overseas who are simply going in every hour and looking at the top queries and giving me a list of when they do a search, with a U.S. browser, where does my company rank vis-a-vis my competitors? And every hour I get this report, and I can look and I can see if we're getting outbid by someone, and that's before I even get the reporting in AdWords. So for peak periods, for your most important keywords, if someone comes in and a couple competitors come in and take you from position 1 to position 4, that could be the difference in thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue for you. So, this is the one time a year where I recommend going to extremes, having extra staff, working extra hours, having extra reports. Every hour of your peak period is the difference between a record holiday and an average holiday. All right, next tip, coordinate internally. So I mentioned this a couple times, but you, as a search engine marketer, if you just go into the holidays alone and just expect everything to be hunky-dory, you could be missing a lot of opportunity. Probably the biggest thing that I tell retailers when I'm thinking about the holidays is, do you offer free shipping, guaranteed delivery, and gift wrap? Shoppers who are going to be ordering from you want to know those three things. Those are three of the biggest drivers that determine whether someone's going to buy from you. For a lot of companies, in particular the gift wrapping and the guaranteed delivery is something that is not a standard part of their operating procedure. So if you're not coordinating with your operations team and your merchandising team to get these things in place, then you're going to be left holding the bag when it comes to holiday season. And if you're selling a product that's somewhat of a commodity, let's say you're selling a computer, and three people are selling the same computer, but the two of them have the gift wrap and guaranteed delivery, and all you can offer is free shipping, you're probably going to lose to those other two people. The same is true for finance, talking to finance and to operations. I mentioned this before, but make sure you have budget allocated to finance. Make sure finance has paid off invoices to Google. Make sure that credit cards are working. The same is true for operations. Make sure that they have inventory in stock. Make sure that they have the gift wrapping in place. If you go it alone and not work as a team, then your search engine marketing is going to suffer. Tip number 5, let's talk about the date. So I mentioned Cyber Monday, and a lot of people think, oh, well, Cyber Monday is a big day. That's when everything happens. That's what I need to focus on. What I've seen more and more is that Cyber Monday is indicative of the beginning of the holiday shopping season. It is not the holiday shopping season. So if you look at this data from Experian, there are several days that in the top 10 that occur long after Cyber Monday, making sure that you have a great Cyber Monday promotion and trying to get a lot of sales that day is great. But depending on when your ship date is, your final ship date to get guaranteed delivery, you can see tremendous sales all the way up to Christmas Day. In fact, if you look at this, number 8 is the day after Christmas is one of the top sales days. So the holiday season doesn't end on Christmas. It ends when people stop buying. The other thing that I'd emphasize here is that you should think about what time of year it is in the holiday season to impact your promotions and your ad text. So someone who's doing shopping, let's say in mid-November, so in the next couple weeks, that type of person is probably very organized. They probably want to just get stuff off their plate. They want to be done with things. What sort of ad and what sort of promotion is going to be relevant to them? Compare that to someone who is shopping on December 22nd. They're not organized. They're panicking. Are they going to be able to get the gift to their loved one in time? That person probably wants to see something about guaranteed delivery, about gift wrap, etc. So, the time of your the time in which you're running an ad is really relevant to what the ad text should say. The other thing that you can do, which a lot of people do, is what I call a persistent promotion, which is to create promotions that have a time period, but as soon as they end, create another promotion that may be more or less the same offer, but is just has a new time period. So you could do something, Cyber Monday special, ends today, 30% off everything in our store. As soon as Cyber Monday is over, you have a early bird special. For the next 72 hours, anyone who orders over $50 gets a $15 gift card to Starbucks, whatever. The point is, you can keep rotating promotions that have time period that create a sense of urgency for the shoppers, but as soon as they end, you put another one in its place. All right, tip 6, spying the competition. So first of all, I think that it's a good policy to just always know what the competition is doing. the beauty and the curse of search engine marketing is that the competition is only a click away. So if you think that you've got a fantastic offer and you're offering a new IBM computer for $999, but you don't look at the competition and realize that they're offering the same computer for $799, you're going to find that you're not getting the conversions that you want, and you're going to be scratching your head trying to figure out, is it my landing page, is it my ad text, whatever. Not understand. If you just looked at the competitors, you would know that you were just priced out of the market. So understanding what competitors are doing in terms of pricing, in terms of their own promotions, in terms of the ship dates that they have is important. I mentioned ship dates because if you have the ability to ship later than your competitors in the season, you may find that the bids go down significantly, and you're just cleaning up the last couple days of the shipping season, the holiday season. So, if your competitors are stopping on December 20th, you can go through the 22nd. Those 2 days may be the most profitable days of your campaign. Make sure you have budget to spend there, because you may see a bunch of volume show up that you didn't expect. This also relates to the notion that look for competitors' behavior in terms of bidding outside of shipping. So I mentioned earlier that making sure that you talk to finance is really important to make sure that you have enough budget to get to the season. There will be competitors who have not gone through this exercise and who run out of money. And typically speaking, this happens close to Christmas, but you can sometimes see this happen late at night when people forget to set their budget for holiday seasons, and their budget is spent by 5 p.m., and the next 7 hours is just gravy for you. Sometimes it happens on a weekly basis. Sometimes competitors run out of inventory. So being aware of trends that you're seeing with your competitors can be really valuable to you. So you may decide, for example, that if you have only $5,000 to spend in a given day, maybe you only want to spend $2,000 of it by 5 p.m. and spend the last $3,000 after 5 p.m. when you know your competitors aren't going to be bidding, and you're going to get a lot more volume of conversions because there's less competition. And then the last thing is just, are they asleep at the wheel? So I mentioned that for very competitive keywords during the peak periods of the shopping season, I typically look at them on an hourly basis. You may find that your competitors are not that savvy, and they're only looking at their keywords on a daily basis. So your competitors may go in and make a bid change, maybe automatically through some campaign management software at 9 a.m. You just need to go in at 9:30 and outbid them, and then you may not have to do anything for the rest of the day until they make their bid change the next morning at 9 a.m. and they keep thinking they're in first position, but you're outbidding them every step of the way. It's a great advantage if you can capitalize on it. Number 7, good news, bad news. Open your checkbook. I have generally, my general rule of thumb is to expect bids for holiday-related items, gift items, to go up 3 times from their normal bid, and the volume to go up 3 times as well. So to put that in perspective, if you're averaging $1 a click and you're getting 10,000 clicks a month, normally you should expect to pay $3 a click and to get 30,000 clicks. And that means that your budget's going from $10,000 a month to $90,000 a month. That's pretty extreme, but I would say that it's not uncommon for people to spend 4 to 10 times their monthly budget, average monthly budget, at least on a weekly basis. Let me rephrase that. It's not uncommon for someone to spend 4 to 10 times their weekly average budget from December 1st to around December 22nd. Being ready for that is very important. The last point I want to make is just about user behavior. If you're a savvy retailer, you're probably looking at lifetime value, or LTV, for your customers. And LTV is a measure of not only what someone purchased during a specific transaction, but what we expect their lifetime purchase value to be. It's important to note that holiday purchases are driven by a different type of intent than what you typically see. So typically speaking, someone is buying for themselves. There's certainly gift buying throughout the year, but typically speaking, the intent around most shoppers is to buy for themselves. That intent totally changes in Q4, and people start buying gifts. So if you know that the average user who buys from you in March has a $100 lifetime value, you need to be careful about applying that LTV to the holiday season, because the people coming in the holiday season are totally different. Now, that may be positive. It may be that someone who comes into the holiday season spends $500, but it also may be negative. And so you need to account for that when you're making your bid adjustments. It may also be the case that holiday gift buyers turn out to have great general LTV. So they buy a gift, and then they end up becoming a customer buying for themselves, and you can factor that into your equation. But you need to be really careful about just assuming that LTV and intent is consistent throughout holiday and non-holiday seasons. The one other thing I'll add to this, which I think is a similar but different point, is a lot of people look at purchase latency and in trying to predict what the NC cost per acquisition is going to be, or ROAS is going to be for their campaigns. So most people have a Google cookie set to either 30 or 60 days, and in the case of a typical retailer, they'll see a strong percentage of sales come in the first week, and then sales start to trickle off, but still getting some sales from someone who might have clicked 30 days ago. The holiday season latency is almost always very short. So someone will do a search on December 5th, and by December 7th, if they haven't purchased from you, they probably aren't going to purchase that holiday season. They've probably made a different choice. So the same concept applies here. If you're looking at your latency and you're expecting all these orders to come in because you get a lot of orders in week 3 and 4, that's probably not the case in the holiday season. You put these two things together. You look at latency and LTV, and you could have a totally different bidding decision based on the difference in those numbers. And this kind of goes back to the first point I made, which is look at your numbers from last year and try to calculate what happened last year, and you're going to be putting yourself in a much better situation to make smart decisions about how to understand the economics for this year's shopping season. So that's it. I went through this fairly quickly, but that is kind of my MO. And McKay, I will open it to you if you have, if anyone has any questions that they've sent in. I'm happy to try to answer them.
Great. David, that was awesome. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was great. Well, and I think to summarize sort of what you're saying, if you've got your ducks in a row, there's obviously a significant opportunity here during the holidays. People spend a lot of money, especially on B2C type purchases. Do you have any guidance in the B2B world if people are managing AdWords spend or PPC spend for B2B companies during the holidays? Do your rules apply to those types of businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, I think one thing that is always interesting on the B2B side is that the end of Q4 is the end of the year, the end of the quarter, and that typically has impact for both sellers and buyers. For buyers, it sometimes means that if they don't spend their budget, they lose it. So there are buyers that are in Q4 saying, "Gosh, I got to spend this money, or else I'm not going to get it next year." And so you do sometimes have this behavior where people are more open to purchase something. The other thing that you sometimes see with buyers at the end of Q4 is, frankly, they're kind of bored, and they start doing searches for things that they've kind of put off for the rest of the year. I remember once talking to a salesperson. It was like December 20th, and she was a B2B salesperson. And she was just sitting around the office doing nothing. And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to call anyone. Everyone's getting ready for the holidays." And I said, "You should call them. They have nothing else to do. They're just bored." So she ended up calling people, and it was actually the best time of year for her to close some deals. The other thing that also happens in Q4, which is not entirely related to SEM, but relevant, is that salespeople are coming up against their quarterly commission quota and their annual quota, and so there is a greater urgency for salespeople to try to strike some deals. So you do have this behavior that impacts user behavior and the propensity to buy. I think that there's that if there's a lot of companies that do shut down in Q4, and they're certainly not going to make purchase decisions in Q4, especially if it's like a retailer. So for a company that is just not going to make a purchase in Q4, but maybe is researching, I think you could make an argument to say that your landing pages for your B2B ads in Q4 should be more focused on nurturing and awareness, and less focused on direct response. Again, if it's the type of business that it's too risky for them to make a significant change in that quarter. But as I said, I mean, for a lot of businesses, there are people who have money to spend, and Q4 and the last 3 weeks of the year is the best place to be, because you get that person on the line and they've got $100,000 and they've got to spend it somewhere. That can be a great opportunity for a B2B company.
Well, in our experience too, I mean, we're a B2B company, obviously. And the thing that's interesting is it's actually been a pretty good time to sell, November and December, because I think you said it a moment ago, is there's a sense of, I don't want to do any like super hard projects, so I'm going to make my buying decisions and sit through some demos right now. I don't have to think as hard and do as much work, which is a very true thing, I think, in November and December for a lot of people. So, yeah, I would agree with you. So we've got a couple of good questions from Jason here, actually. He says, what's your favorite tool to use when watching your competition's SEM efforts? There's a lot of tools out there that work in a lot of different ways. What do you use, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, the tools that I have typically relied on have been SEMrush and SpyFu, and they both sort of serve the same purpose and sort of do the same thing. I do think that you have to, the way I describe these tools is you have to look at them as being consistently inconsistent. So if you look at what your competition is buying on one of these tools, they may say the competition is spending $100,000 a month, and here's their 10,000 keywords. And then you look at your own projections that they're showing for you on these tools, and it says, well, that you're spending $50,000 a month. But by just simply looking at your AdWords account that you're actually spending $200,000 a month. So what I do is I usually just use my own, whatever they're reporting for my business, I use that as a proxy to recalculate what they say the competition is spending. That gives me at least some directional consistency. The other thing that I think is a real challenge of these competitive tools is the browser-based queries, or session-based queries, I should say. So, someone does a search for best McDonald's, milkshake, and then goes to and does a search for mortgage rate prices. Google will often serve ads based on the prior query in the session. And I find that these tools pick up a lot of those sessions, and you get these just ridiculous queries that they think someone is searching for. I think you really have to be careful with those estimates, but it's better than nothing. And then, as I said, I mean, for looking at your own queries that you know are important to you, so not trying to discover what someone else is buying, but just trying to figure out where you rank on particular keywords and where your competitors are ranking. I think you can literally just hire someone, a virtual assistant or an intern or something, and in peak seasons they can just do searches live on a U.S. browser and give you the results every hour. One other tool that I'll mention, which I think is pretty good, but I haven't honestly used it, is the Search Monitor, which will do some competitive research for you as well.
That's great. And do you see any variance in bid values during the holiday season? Because of the demand on certain products, do those things by nature go up? And I mean, what are your rules for bidding, I suppose, during the holiday season as opposed to other times of the year? Yeah,
well, as I said, I mean, I think you have to be prepared to bid hourly. you have to assume that if it's a gift-related item, the bids are going to go up probably 300%. And then you have to calculate what you really think your actual LTV is going to be and what the actual latency is, and so make some quick decisions about what position you can afford. But almost inevitably bids will go up, unless it's an item that just doesn't have any gift-related relevance to it. But it's inevitable that even today people are probably seeing bids increase already. But just to give you an example, I mean, we worked with a company in the stationery space, and they were averaging $2 or $3 a click during the regular season, and by like early December, the bids were in the $12 to $20 range, and we were literally making bid changes hourly to keep up with the competition from their competitors. So, being very quick and analytical on bidding is a huge advantage during the holiday season.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. One final question. As you get into the holiday season, do your clients, do you think, have and I'm sure the ones you've worked with for a long time do, but are people unrealistic about what they can accomplish with SEM during the holiday season? Are there too high expectations? Do you think people really understand how different this time of year is, especially in the B2C world? Or is it still sort of a mystery for a lot of people, and that's probably why you picked this presentation? I'm just curious there.
Yeah, I think it depends on how many years you've been doing this. I mean, if you've been in this at this rodeo for several holiday seasons, you know what it's like, and you know what you have to do. We do sometimes run into companies that say, we talked to a company last year that said, we want to sell, 40,000 units of this product, and we want to sell it during the holiday season, and we haven't really done any online advertising to date, and they called us about this like November 15th, and I said, well, you can't start planning for a holiday season, 3 weeks before or 2 weeks before Cyber Monday, especially if you're expecting to sell 40,000 units and you've never sold anything online. So I do get inquiries from people where they just don't understand the amount of preparation and the competitiveness of the space, and just expect that they can just kind of waltz in and make it happen. For the most part, though, I mean, if you're talking about a company that's already spending $50,000, $100,000 a month on search engine marketing, I mean, it's a retail-driven company. They understand that Q4 is where the action happens. I will say that there are a surprising number of companies that have really strong Q1s as well. If you're in fitness, weight loss, dating, anything related to Valentine's Day, flowers, jewelry, chocolate, those all do well in Q1 as well. So, for a lot of companies, like let's say you're in jewelry, your season really is November 15th all the way through Valentine's Day. I guess my point there would be to say, if you're preparing a Q4 strategy right now, that's great. But depending on your product, you may also want to be looking at, what happens after Q4 and into Q1. How do I keep riding the wave?
Makes sense. Makes total sense. And then Jason actually asked another good question here. He says, can you give us some sort of sense about your price structure, how you charge clients for SEM? And I know it depends on a variety of factors, I'm sure, but just kind of give our audience a sense of the cost structure, if you can, and the services you guys provide.
Yeah, I mean, we generally charge at a percentage of spend, and just typically our clients are spending. We actually have two agencies. We have one agency, which is 3Q Digital, which works with companies spending $50,000 or more, and typically we're charging them, at a minimum, sort of 12% of spend, or $10,000 a month, whichever is greater at that level, and that's a full service agency relationship where we're doing the ad text, we're helping with landing pages, we're doing bid management, keyword creation, negative keywords, targeting, reporting, tracking, implementation, etc. We have a sister agency called Intended.com that works with startups, and typically they're looking at companies that are spending $10,000 to $50,000 a month, and they charge less. I think they charge $3,500 a month or something like that. And they provide great service. The only real difference there is that our reporting is a little bit nicer. We may have a couple people who are a little bit more senior, and we have the ability to help people with paid social, display, and SEO, whereas Intended is focused 100% on SEM. But they're a great team, and in fact, the head of that team, it was formerly the head of client services at 3Q Digital, so you're not really missing a beat when you work with them. But I'm always happy to talk to people if they think they have a business that could be a fit for us. You can certainly reach out to me through this email, the info@3Q Digital, and I'll be happy to have a conversation and see if it makes sense.
Great. David, thank you very much for taking the time. So we know you're really busy, and we know you're an in-demand guy and an in-demand speaker, so we thank you very much for taking the time. I do want to encourage everybody, email David with questions, or if you have questions about their pricing or how they work. Also encourage you to check out logmycalls.com, and our plans start at $69 a month, so you can get really good call data for a really low price, and then they go up from there. So, David, any final thoughts before we close?
No, I mean, thanks everyone for the good questions, for listening, and I wish everyone a lot of success this holiday.
Me as well. So, David, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Make sure, everybody, that you watch for in your inbox tomorrow morning. We'll send out the recording for this webinar. So thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the week. Bye-bye.